we've started. Okay, so welcome everyone to Black Country Partnership and Dudley and Walsall Mental Health's first joint Facebook Live Q&A session. Last month we spoke to Marcus and Dom from our Talking Therapy service all about managing stress for Stress Awareness Month, if you saw that one. So as most of you will know, this week is Mental Health Awareness Week, and the theme for this year is body image, so we're going to be talking about that topic today. So I'm joined by Kirsty and Donna from both of our trusts. So would you like to introduce yourselves?
Yeah, my name's Kirsty Brook. I'm the lead nurse for the CAMS Eating Disorder Service for Dudley and Walsall.
And I'm Donna Hamilton. I'm the service manager and clinical lead for the all-age eating disorder service across Sandwell and Wolverhampton.
Great, so we've had a number of questions submitted ahead of this live session, but if you'd like to ask a question additional, you can put that in the comments and we'll try and get round to it during the session. So to start with, we just mentioned that this week is Mental Health Awareness Week, so we've chosen to speak to you both specifically. But for those of you who don't know, can you tell us a little bit about your service and why we've chosen to speak to you?
So I suppose that body image is a really common problem that comes up, and we know that negative body image is something that affects lots of young people and adults as well. And we also know that lots of people with eating disorders such as anorexia have a negative body image, and that's part of the disorder. So it's something that we're really used to talking about within our service and providing support around. I don't know if you want to...
Yeah, I mean, I think that, you know, when we think about body image, it's across a whole spectrum really. So in the society that we live in, there'll be some people who have some minor concerns about their body image, and that might go through to people that, Kirsty and I might work with, who have eating disorders like anorexia, where it might be much more severe in the impact on somebody's life and the presentation that they, you know, attend to see us with. And, you know, again, Kirsty, you might have the same kind of thing. I do a lot of talking with people that come to see it, use our services, about trying not to engage necessarily in the way that society thinks about bodies and uses them to really impact on our self-esteem and how we feel about ourselves. So it's kind of a way that's used to measure how people feel about themselves, you know, looking and measuring their own bodies. But it's not always necessarily a very valid way. Yeah, it's just one single aspect of who we are as a human being. So, like Kirsty said, we're used to speaking about it all the time, and I think we're probably quite pleased that Mental Health Awareness Week has raised it, because sometimes our kind of services are, well, they've notoriously been underfunded and not really been on the agenda, but thankfully more and more.
Yeah, eating disorders is more on the national agenda, and
yeah.
That's really important. But also the other thing is that negative body image isn't just about eating disorders. Like Donna said, it's a spectrum. And we know that young people with depression and anxiety often have a very negative sense of their own self-esteem and their own kind of body image as well. So it affects lots of different people with different conditions within the mental health arena.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so like you've said, body image doesn't always get brought up in relation to mental health. I suppose it's maybe spoken about a little bit less than other factors that can trigger mental health problems. But from your experience within your roles, how does body satisfaction link to our mental health, and how does it affect people day to day?
I think from my experience, negative body image can have a significant impact on how people live their lives. So certainly I know people who perhaps won't go out, won't engage in certain activities, won't do things that they enjoy, won't meet friends because they're so worried and so concerned about aspects of their appearance and their kind of view of themselves.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's hard, isn't it, because they might have had experiences that reinforce some of those beliefs they have about their body. Yeah. And so even things that lots of people might take for granted, like getting changed to go out for, I don't know, a family meal, might be incredibly difficult for somebody to be able to find something to put on, let alone then thinking about being in environments where there's food. And sometimes there can be concerns then about if people have got strong beliefs around feeling that their weight size and shape is not as they would like it to be, they might be concerned about how other people judge them if they eat or they don't eat, and it can be a very difficult kind of cycle to get caught up in.
So what would you say are the main triggers for body image concerns?
So we know that there seems to be a big link between kind of bullying and people's negative comments about body image, shape, weight, size, and that's certainly an experience that a lot of young people have, that, you know, in school, you know, at home, from friends, they might hear, they might see kind of quite negative comments about body image, and you know, that kind of view is internalised often, and that kind of makes people kind of view themselves in a different way.
And I think sometimes it's also about experiences people have had with their bodies. So, you know, if people have had physical health problems or illnesses that they're living with, or experiences where their body might be abused or harmed by other people, that might indeed impact on how they feel about their body and see their body in general, and maybe sometimes the beliefs that they've developed about their body. And I think certainly beliefs we have about ourselves, we often think are a true reflection, but actually are just what we've come to believe based on the experiences that we've had.
I also think it's important to realise that we live in a society that's incredibly focused on appearance. So, you know, even from, you know, toys aimed at toddlers, very much focused on dolls around, you know, the perfect female figure, even kind of action men as well for boys. You know, he looks a very certain way, doesn't he? And all of those messages, I think, get taken on board by people as they grow up, and, you know, send a message about how people should look, how people should aspire to be.
And, you know, I think it even perhaps wider than that as a society. I think, you know, if you think about the images that are out there, it's about, you know, people being concerned about, you know, even how they should wear their hair, the colour of people's skin, people's sexuality. All those kind of parts are played out in society, aren't they, when it comes to body image and how people should expect to look to kind of fit in and belong. So, you know, I think most of us have that sense of wanting to feel that, you know, we belong and are meaningful human beings. And as a society, I don't think we're very good at that.
Yeah, definitely. So just following on from that, I think there's often quite a lot of speculation, especially in the media, and people talking about body image, that it predominantly affects female teenagers. I think that's probably what we hear the most. Would you agree with that, or would you argue that?
I would argue it, actually, because I think that this is as much of a concern for males, actually, and certainly we've been recognising in recent years that, you know, a lot of males, a lot of men have quite significant concerns about their body, about kind of aspiring to the ideal kind of masculine body type. And it's just that perhaps it's not been understood or recognised, and those individuals have perhaps not been able to access the support that would have helped them. But I do think, you know, that population really do struggle, but you are right as well in thinking that this is a massive issue for females as well. I also heard recently about the LGBT population as well, and this is something that, you know, body image issues often get kind of overlooked by services, but this is something that this community really struggles with as well.
And, you know, I think, off the top of my head, I think it's about 11% of people who present to an eating disorder service would be male. But like Kirsty says, there's a lot of myth that people would be young teenagers, and that might be indeed where they might be start the development really of an eating disorder. But eating disorders and body image issues can go on and affect people throughout the whole course of their life, really. And again, I think Kirsty picked up on a really important point about the LGBT community, but also I think people from BME communities as well. You know, I think certainly over the last 20 years we've seen a massive change in the media around, you know, what the ultimate female body shape should look like, and the same for men really, and they're probably facing growing pressures around having to look as society expects them to. So I'm hopeful that, you know, we'll have services so that, you know, men with body image issues feel able to speak up and get help, you know, whether they have an eating disorder or other mental health difficulties. I hope that's kind of the way we're going. We're very keen for mental health services to get the recognition that they kind of deserve, really. And I think weeks like this are really good to have interviews and put things on the agenda and make people feel more comfortable and know that we're welcoming as services, really.
Yeah, definitely. So I think we've probably touched on it already, but there's a lot of increasing pressure on people to fit into the idea of perfect, like we mentioned with the Barbie and the Ken dolls from young age. How can people avoid these negative thoughts that will probably come from seeing things in social media, and can people get away from it?
I think my what I would normally say is that there is no such thing as perfect. It only really exists as a word in the dictionary. You know, that's something I say quite often. And, you know, I think on social media in particular, with the rise of Instagram filters, you know, people positioning their bodies in a certain way, often those posts are about selling us an image, an idea, a lifestyle. And I guess what I would ask people to think about is, you know, when you see those posts, who's posted that, why, what's their intention, and to really be kind of a critical social media viewer.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I think that's probably with all forms of media, but especially social media.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure that people are very highly selective of the kind of photographs they put on of themselves. You know, probably taken, you know, 50 photos of themselves before they've selected the best one and posted that. Yeah, because I'm pretty sure most people don't put pictures on there of them looking what they would see as their worst, perhaps when they first get up in the morning, or, you know, I don't know, if they're having a bad hair day. People don't generally put those pictures on. So if we live in a society that people feel that everybody else looks perfect other than me, it's not really going to be very helpful to us. I think as well, sometimes people use, you know, references, Kirsty, social media as kind of a very select point to look at people who are portraying this image of looking great, and that just reinforces people's beliefs about their own body image not being good enough, which is, again, not helpful.
Yeah, thank you for that. So for anyone watching who might be thinking, I like using social media, but it does make me feel quite bad about myself, I'd like some other options of things that I could follow that might give positive messages or be more helpful for their mindset. Do you have any recommendations for those kind of social media pages or other resources?
So we would always recommend BEAT, who are the National Eating Disorders Association, who have social media accounts including Instagram, and as you might expect, they're a fantastic resource in terms of body positivity, but also support for people with eating disorders.
Yeah, and they've got some really helpful helplines. There's one for adults and there's one for young people that you can access, and they do a whole range of resources that people can print off. So I just printed off a few this morning and brought them along. So this is about people seeking treatment for an eating disorder and talking to their GP. And BEAT produced this particular resource because people were finding that when they got to a GP, they were then finding it hard to move in to get the correct help. So this can be helpful to kind of take along to a GP. And I think this is the one that this is also when you're worried about somebody, kind of how to broach that with them. But they do a great deal of stuff that's really helpful. And I think other things that we might encourage people to look for is something that kind of is challenging the social media myth. So we often in our service, we look at people finding positive body affirmations. So I brought a couple of these along that I grabbed off our team this morning to bring along. So things like this one, the size of my waist has nothing to do with my worth. And speak to your body in a loving way. It's the only one you've got. It's your home and it deserves respect.
And this one, you carry so much love in your heart, give some to yourself. And the idea behind that is, you know, being kind to yourself, not judging yourself harshly or basing your self-worth on appearance and weight and shape.
Because we're more than our bodies, aren't we?
Absolutely.
So kind of just following on from that, you've shown some really good things there. So what would be your top tips for people to kind of feel more confident about themselves or change that negative outlook they might have when they look at their bodies?
I think one of the things I would say is to focus on what your body achieves. You know, it supports you, it keeps you alive, it allows you to go to school or work, it keeps you going for, you know, sometimes 80 plus years. It's an incredible thing, an incredible machine really, and you have to look after it and you have to nurture it.
And I think you're right. I think being kind of compassionate and caring to other people can often feel very easy to us, but sometimes doing that, you know, speaking to ourselves in nice ways and treating our body with kindness, you know, making sure we eat well, sleep well, all those kind of really important things seems to slip to the wayside. And I think it's really important to come back and remember that actually to live your life, it's important to show care and kindness to yourself as well in order to do the everyday things that you need to do.
And to focus also on your achievements and what you've brought to the world, which aren't necessarily based around weight, shape, body image. So, you know, we've all got fantastic qualities, we've all got, you know, important relationships, things that we're proud of, and to those are the things you get remembered for.
Absolutely,
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. So we've had a question that came through from Anna, and she's asked, she says, I've thought for a while that my friend may be struggling with her body image and confidence in general. I feel that it's very personal, so I don't know how to start a conversation. How can I support her?
So I think that even just opening the conversation by, when you're hearing someone saying something negative, saying, actually, what's going on? Why do you think that? And actually affirming what you think about them, the positivity, the positive messages about kind of not only the body but also about how they are as a person, but also making them feel as though they can talk about these thoughts and feelings if they are having them, not necessarily shutting them down, but acknowledging them and saying, well, let's talk about it, let's support you.
And I think you're right that sometimes when we raise concerns that we have about ourselves, people will say things just like, don't be silly.
Yeah.
Well, we're not being silly. These are things that are real experiences for people. And often we want to feel validated, that somebody gets that that's why we might feel that way. And sometimes, friends and family members might not necessarily even be looking for you to solve the problem for them, but just to be there, validate them, listen to them, show them kindness and kind of encourage that. But just to come back to this resource from Beat, there's also a little bit on here in terms of some tips in getting people help with eating disorders or even mental health problems in general. I feel that this relates to, opening up the conversation and talking to people. So, I think it's, again, we're pleased that body image is back on the agenda, certainly this week, and really being highlighted because it will encourage people to open up conversation with friends, family, as well as getting any help that they might need.
Okay, so just going back to you two and your roles within both of the trusts, what attracted you to your careers?
I think I've always really been passionate about working with young people in particular, and I think in eating disorders that's really important because all the evidence says if you provide treatment and intervene earlier, there's a much better chance of recovery. And it's really satisfying to see young people who we've worked with be discharged, go on to university, go on to build their lives. So that's really kind of what motivates me, what helps me to kind of get up in the morning and to do this job.
Yeah, and I think we're very privileged to do the job that we do because people come and see us and speak about their most intimate personal feelings and experiences and really trust us, and I think that's really a privilege when people can put that much trust in you to kind of help them find a way of overcoming or living with an eating disorder. And it's a job that I think Kirsty and I are both really proud to do. Raise the flag a little bit and improve services. And certainly in my time working with eating disorders, as children's services have improved, I'm really hopeful that perhaps in the future care across the spectrum will be better, and maybe there'll be less people in adulthood with such entrenched difficulties maybe.
Yes, yeah.
But I'm sure we'll see that over time.
Yeah.
So as you both work within different teams at the moment and you've based at different trusts, for anyone watching who might want more information, can you just confirm who your services are aimed at and how they can get in touch with you if they'd like to speak to you?
So our service covers Dudley and Walsall, and we see young people up to the age of 18. And the route into our service is to speak to a GP who will kind of have that conversation with you and make a referral into us. But I'd also recommend, school nurses can be a really helpful source of advice and support to young people in school. And kind of counsellors, but also trusted adults can be people who can start those conversations and kind of be, again, part of the route into a more specialist service.
And our service across the Black Country Trust, which covers Sandwell and Wolverhampton, is all age, so we take people across the age spectrum with eating disorders, and certainly over the years we've become more of a combined team working together, and we would see people with a range of eating disorders and difficulties and use lots of the evidence-based approaches. And again, like Kirsty says, most people generally access our service by seeing their GP, and perhaps they find themselves in a mental health service that would be referring to us, but we do take direct referrals from GPs as well. And for our young people, we will accept referrals from schools and various other places as well.
Okay, thank you. So this is to both of you, just as a final question. So if you could say one thing to someone right now who's struggling with their body image, or maybe just mental health in general, what would you say to them?
I would probably say that you're not alone in feeling how you feel, but things can get better.
Okay, that's really lovely, by the way.
That's really lovely.
Yeah, and I think hope is a really important word,
Yes,
so
it is.
I'm going to jump on the back of you a little bit, if you don't mind,
That's
Kirsty.
fine.
But I think sometimes when we're at our lowest or the most difficult points in our life, we don't ever think things are going to change or get better. And I'm sure Kirsty and I have worked with many people who have thought that, whose lives have changed in such positive ways. And so hope is the word that I would say, that there is always hope, there is always somebody there. Sometimes it might just be finding and trusting somebody enough to kind of get help and support.
Okay, thank you. So I don't think we've had any more questions come through, but if anyone does have any more questions, feel free to comment them below, and we'll get back to you with an answer. We could even send them over to Kirsty and Donna for more detailed response. But I'd just like to say thank you to you both for your input today. We've had some really good info, and I'm sure it's helped a lot of people. And thank you to everyone for watching today. So look out for our next Facebook Live soon.